Hey everyone, on this lecture we are going to study anonymous functions in OCaml. Anonymous functions, also called lambda functions, are expressions that represent a function without a name. Here we have a way for defining anonymous functions. As we can see, we begin with the keyword fun, then we have the series of arguments that we receive as input, and then we have the output, right? For instance, if we apply this anonymous function with the input 5, when the value of x is 5, the output is 6. This is basically an anonymous function that, given an input, returns the input plus 1, right? So this is the syntax for defining anonymous functions in OCaml. Fun is the keyword used to define an anonymous function. These args represents the arguments that the function takes. And finally, the output is the result, the output of this function. We can differentiate these anonymous functions from named functions. For instance, here we are defining a function with a name, the name double, that basically what we here are doing is given an input x returns 2 multiplied by x, right? So if we apply this function double to the element 3, which is the input, the output is going to be 6. And if we apply now, okay, the map, which is a higher order function, which we already studied on the previous lecture, okay, that basically applies a given function to all of the elements of a list. If this function that we want to apply to each element is the function double, then we are going to do nothing more than multiplying by 2 all of these elements. So we are going to have here 2, 4, and 6, which is this output that we can see here. So the interesting thing here is that we can also use anonymous functions when using higher order functions. For instance, here we are using the higher order function map, and the function that we want to apply to each element is a anonymous function, as we can see here. Very important, when we want to apply a anonymous function, we define this anonymous function using parentheses, right? So again, this function, which is an anonymous function, that's the same thing as the double function, right? So we here give it an element x, we multiply by 2. So we apply it to each element thanks to the function map, and we have here this out. So anonymous functions are usually used when they are short, and they need to only be used once. They are also useful for performing program transformations. These transformations refer to the process of modifying or altering a program's structure, behavior, or representation to achieve certain goals. We are not limited in having only one parameter in an anonymous function. In fact, we can have many more. For instance, this is an anonymous function. It is a lambda function that receives 2 input parameters. We have 2 arguments in the input, x and y, and it returns the sum of them. Now, remember that in OCaml, functions have only one single parameter. So this anonymous function definition is equivalent to this definition that we see below. So what is this anonymous function? Well, this is a anonymous function that, given an input x, returns another anonymous function that, given an input y, returns the sum of x plus y. Now, of course, OCaml programmers usually define anonymous functions having multiple parameters using this first way, which is quite more concise. However, it is important to bear in mind that in reality what we have is this, where each function has only one single argument. Now, the reason that functions take in reality one single argument is because functions are carried by default. Carrying is a technique used in functional programming languages, just like OCaml, and it is a way to handle functions with multiple arguments by transforming them into a series of functions, each taking only one argument. Very well, with this we end this brief lecture on anonymous functions in OCaml.